These have been in the ground all winter. And most people, they'd have pulled them months ago. But I didn't. And now they're doing this. What you was looking at, what you seeing there, wasn't that turnip dying. It's that turnip moving to the next stage of life. Most people are looking at turnips as a root crop. And yeah, they are. But those greens are awful tasty. Matter of fact, that's about my favorite part of them. You see, turnips, they're a two-stage crop or a biennial. If left in the ground, they don't die, they change. The first stage is that's what most people use. You know, you get some of those greens, you pull the turnip, and you think you're done. But that's only half the story. These turnips, they sat here through freezing snow, pouring rain, harsh wind. They didn't die. They were here for any time we needed them. And now they're doing something else entirely different. They slowed down, they stored up energy. Now they're going into their last phase of life. Plants switching from making food to making seed. You get those nice, you get little yellow flowers. After that, you get the seed pods. And the cycle starts again. You can actually eat those seeds. They're in the mustard family, but that's not really the point. You're getting something more useful here. That's your next crop. That's what's more useful here. Let these go to seed, and they're gonna continue to go. Once it gets to this stage, really not, much of a food crop anymore. Yeah, you can still eat it, but it's gonna be coarse and woody, and your best bet is just to let it go to seed. Most people today, they don't really use turnips that much, and it's a shame, because it sustained people for thousands and thousands of years before the potato was a dominant food. Part of the reason they're not used as much is I don't think people actually know how to use them. But really, they're very, very, very simple and forgiving. They go with about anything. You can eat them fresh. You can throw them in roasts and stews. You can even mash them up like mashed potatoes. And they have a habit of taking on those other flavors around them. Those greens are some of the best parts. You can pick them young, use them in your salads. You can saute them up or just boil them. That's the way I like them. Just boil up a mess of turnip greens, little salt and pepper, dab of butter, maybe a little vinegar. You can use them in the place of spinach, and that's where they somewhat compare. Spinach is a little bit more dense, but with spinach, often you're eating it in small amounts. But with the turnip, you're eating the greens and the roots, and you're getting some real nutrient density there, and it's filling. Something super, super cool about turnips that I just absolutely love is I'm getting those two crops from basically the same space. Those delicious greens early, then later that root. It's also super fascinating that they can be in the ground all winter. Even out in the snow, I can go out there and uncover a little snow, and I can find those turnips, and they're stored perfectly safe. They're even sweeter after a cold spell's hit them. Even if you don't harvest them all, they're still doing important work. That turnip there is the size of a softball. It's broke up some of my hard clay soil, and if I just leave it there, it's going to decompose and it's going to build that soil and be better for the future. You know, it's going to bring those nutrients from down below, get them up near the surface where other plants can use them in a lighter, fluffier soil. And right now, while it's early spring and not much else is happening, those bright yellow flowers, they're feeding our pollinators at a time when there's not much else that does. No video of mine would be complete without a little bit of history in it, because it's fascinating to see where some of these plants come from and how much people have relied upon them, and how things have changed, and how maybe some of that ancient wisdom, stuff we use in our modern days. The ancient Greeks, they were growing turnips, and they weren't treating them as a side. They were an absolute staple. Writers like Pliny the Elder, he writes them down in some of his ancient Greek writings. Not because they were the best tasting, but because they absolutely worked. Before potatoes showed up in Europe, this was one of the main root crops because it stored well, easily grew, produced those two different crops from the same plant. It got you through tough, hard winters. This is exactly the type of plant you planted. For people like the Celts, this type of plant wasn't optional. It was a necessity, as it was such dependable food. And in those cold north climates where the Vikings lived, they need something that would grow quick, produce real food in short growing seasons. It couldn't fail. And the turnip did just that. It didn't fail in that harsh climate. Turnips came to the Americas. They did the same job they always have. Just fed people and animals unassumingly. And in a lot of places, they were just getting by. Even things we think of as modern, like pumpkins carved into jack-o'-lanterns, why, the turnip beat them there first. In Ireland, Scotland, people carved them out, carved faces into them. And that's where the jack-o'-lantern actually started. When you look at it this way, this one plant can be food, greens, animal feed. Turnips are great animal feed and should be part of the future again. We get that so valuable pollinator support. Seed for that next crop, and once again back to feeding the soil. I didn't plant anything special here. I just missed a few, left a few in, but I'm reaping benefit from it. And this is what happens. And so it's something that's good. Now, most of you might have pulled them long ago, but this is what happens if you let that plant just keep on going. Feed something else, gets that next generation going. Eventually gets back into the full circle again. One thing helping another. It wasn't wasted. Just didn't fit how we thought it should be used. Well, thank you for watching. Check back in on me from time to time. I'm always up to something new.